Welcome to episode 94.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and you're listening to Who Did That Voice, where we take an in-depth look at voiceovers.
Ready to take a vacay, but you just don't have the time to plan? Let the agents at 3D Travel Company pamper you and take care of all the little details. Find us at www.whodidthatvoice.co and click the Book Now button on the left-hand side. For a limited time, Who Did That Voice listeners can receive a Disney gift card for qualifying Disney and Universal trips, booked and traveled by 2017. Hurry and book today so you can travel away.
Merry Christmas and welcome to Who Did That Voice, the show where we take an in-depth look at voiceover. And now, here's your host, Trenton Larkin.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the show. Today's special guest is joining me all the way from Paris, France today. He is the voice of Apple for the French website there. He's also has been the continuity voice of Discovery France and the continuity voice of ESPN France. He's done commercials and promos for Disney Store, Lego, Kellogg's, IBM, McDonald's, MTV, Polaroid, Texaco, Fanta, Visa, BMW, Toyota, Sci-Fi, Nike, Coca-Cola, Universal Studios, Ferrari, CNN, Dockers, and so many more. Here is a clip from his worldwide campaign running now for 10 years, Dolce & Gabbana, Light Blue.
Dolce & Gabbana, Light Blue.
Here's another promo that Pierre did for Condor Ferries.
It's time to rediscover Saint-Malo, where around every corner is a new surprise, where colorful delights are created by colorful people, and fresh experiences are everywhere, just waiting to be savored. So see Saint-Malo in a new light and rediscover it with Condor Ferries from just £49 each way with your car. Good times.
Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Who Did That Voice. Today on the show I have Pierre Maubouché joining us all the way from France. Pierre, thank you so much for coming on the show today, man.
Not at all, mate. That's my pleasure, Trenton.
So Pierre, tell me, the very first thing we like to do on the show normally when we start out is just to get a little background on who our special guest is. So tell me, who was the young boy Pierre, and how did you grow up into the man that became an actor and more specifically a voice actor?
Good question. I didn't expect that. That's a good question, Trenton. I'm not sure people really want to hear about who I was as teenager, so we're gonna pass on that. I was a, let's call it a troubled teenager.
Okay.
So I did what troubled teenagers do, and then somehow I moved on to pirate radios. So the first thing I did was working at the picking up the phone picking up the phone when people called the radio station, and little by little I managed to find my way inside the studio, and little by little, well, I was allowed to speak in the mic. That's when I was 17 years old, I believe.
Wow, goodness, that's great.
And that was 17 in 1980. Yeah, 17 years old. And then little by little, well, I had my own show. And then one day I thought, well, there's very, very, very little chance that I'm going to have my own show in a Bay radio station and be able to make a living from that. So I thought maybe, I should do something that, that can fit me. So I then became advertising copywriter. Well, I did what was called a fake book with fake ads. And I rang at the bells of advertising agencies and and then somebody mad enough that became one of my best friends, creative director, gave me a shot, and regretted it ever since. But
That's funny.
And he was great. He was my mentor in advertising. A great guy, Claude Corvalet. Then he was hired in another agency. He took me in his suitcase with him to this other ad agency, and there you go. And then, as it happens in advertising, then the board wanted to take another direction, so they sacked him. They hired another creative director who wanted to come with his own team. Fair enough,
Yeah.
So they sacked me as well, and gave me loads of money for that. So I went to live in the States for a year, mostly LA, and yeah, that's what I did. And then I traveled, went back to France, went back to advertising, then met an English girl, moved to London, as you do, and didn't know anyone beside her there.
Yeah.
So started to do translations. I mean, horrible, financial contracts. I knew nothing about that. I was pre-internet, so access to information was very limited. That was horrible. And then at a pub one evening, we met with a friend of a friend, and he said, "But hang on, there's got to be a niche for you somewhere. You're French, you speak English." And it's like, yeah, but a lot of people do that too.
Yeah.
He said, "It's got to be a niche." And one day I was doing DIY in the flat I was renting at the time. I was putting shelves up, and I heard a radio commercial with two English guys speaking in English with a French, pretending to be French with a French accent. That was horrible. I mean, and that was not meant to be comedic, oh, hello kind of thing,
Yeah.
It was meant to be real French people, and that was really, truly horrible. Sorry, guys, if you hear that was you, but you were terrible.
Yeah.
And I had a huge light bulb moment over my head, and because I worked as a copywriter, I was producing voiceovers for the TV commercials and radio commercials I was writing. So I stayed connected with the studio, and because of course my past in the studio was as a radio DJ. So and I thought, hang on, I could do that much better.
Yeah.
So then I recorded a demo in English with French accent, which I sent to agents, and they say, yeah, okay, but most of your work, like 75%, 80%, will be in French because of the UK market. There's a lot of localization for what we call the FIGs, French, Italian, German, Spanish, and it's all done in London. For convenience sake. So they said, we wouldn't need a French demo. I was like, yeah, okay, no problem, I'll do that. So I did a French demo, and then I started to work on the back of these demos. And that was in 93, 94 maybe. So there you go, that's 23 or 24 years later. Here I am.
Wow. Well, that's a pretty amazing journey, man. A great backstory and a very original story from the other VO talents I've had, because most of them are stateside. So it's great to hear someone that's international and that's gotten to travel abroad and get a lot of diversity in their career. Because I know for you being a Frenchman, hearing somebody trying to imitate a French accent had to be kind of grating on the ears if it wasn't any good.
Well, there's a comedic French, and some English guys or maybe American guys do that really well.
Yeah.
And you know, it's Inspector Clouseau, you know,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, you know, and they do the French accent that English people think is the real thing.
Yeah.
You know, English people or American people who have not traveled a lot. And then it's comedic French. That's one thing. But if you're going to do less comedic and more subtle and more real, I mean, even if it's a bit more accented than my natural accent, sometimes it grinds a little bit. Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure, you know, and like you said, for those who haven't traveled abroad as much, they aren't going to know the difference potentially. And that is something that I learned from when I traveled abroad, because I've lived in South Africa and I've lived in Israel. So when I traveled overseas, I actually got an experience of the world that a lot of people in America don't get. And you get a lot of different accents and you get a lot of different cultures. And sometimes your perspective of what you thought was something isn't when you get overseas.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So
yeah.
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, how did you get the name The French Voice? Where did that come from, Pierre?
Well, you know, I got a stick from some of my colleagues, because they're like, they say when I created that brand, The French Voice, some of them said, well, you're not the French voice, you're a French voice.
Well, no, my friend, I am the French voice.
Well, I can sound like an arrogant bastard at some, you know, some of my colleagues would say I am. But the thing is, that was the beginning of the internet as we know it. And so when I created my website, you know, it was still quite available, domain names and all that.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, sod it, I'm going to call it The French Voice, you know, and that's going to be my brand. And, you know, that was very upfront and bullish and maybe arrogant, you know. I mean, you know, people read whatever they want in that, but but you know, at the time, you know, domain name was available, so you know, I registered it.
You snatched it up. You grabbed it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If I didn't, somebody else would have, you know.
Absolutely.
So,
oh yeah, totally. I agree.
And the thing is, of course, within the French market, it means nothing. So for the French market, my branding is different. I have another website, which is in French, but for the English market and the American market and the Australian and so on, when people look for a French voice, they type French voice in Google, and because it's my domain name, you know, chances are I'm going to be on the first page, you know. So
that's brilliant.
Well, that's my past in advertising that makes me think of what would people who would hire me do, you know?
What are they going to search for? That's brilliant. I didn't even think about that, because if they're like, I need a French voice, and they're like, you know, a French voice, the French voice, man, that's like really crazy, because I didn't think about that. And then you're getting so many hits that people are like always finding you on the website.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. That's brilliant. Well,
yeah, I think the key, and maybe that could be an advice for people who want to start in our industry, that the key is to think about what people who will hire you would want in you. Yeah. So, you know, let's say your USP, your unique selling proposition, is you have I don't know, a very, very deep voice. Then obviously that's deep voice, right? Yeah. If you have cowboy twang, then you know that's what you're going to sell. Yeah. And so on and so forth. If you tell people, I don't know, if you call your voice the I don't know, the voice
Southern twang.
Yeah, if you call yourself the smooth voice because you think you have a smooth voice, well, maybe it's not so good because it's not a USP. A lot of people have smooth voices. And if you sell yourself as a French voice, for instance, and you call yourself the voice of honey, then probably it's not a good idea, because people, if you're French and people are looking for a French voice, then people won't look for a voice of honey. They will look for a French voice.
Yeah.
Maybe that sounds like honey, but
yeah,
it will be French, So.
I like it. Well, instead of the smooth voice, you could type in the smoothie voice. Maybe it'll come up more when people are looking for smoothies.
Right, possibly, exactly.
But well, Pierre, I just wanted to mention some of the wonderful things you've been a part of and voiced for. You've voiced for Dockers, Coca-Cola, Texaco, McDonald's, Kodak, Apple, Dell, Sci-Fi, Polaroid, National Geographic, Fanta, American Express, Disney, ESPN, BMW, and the list just goes on. You have voiced for literally almost every company I've ever bought from, and a lot that I haven't. But it's pretty amazing. But if the market is more limited with people that do the French accent or the French straight up just speaking French in voiceover, then I could see why you have had such an opportunity, of a golden opportunity, to voice so many amazing things. And it even looked like you had voiced several movie trailers and different things as well, I believe.
Yeah. I've done quite a lot of movies doing the ADR.
Yeah.
For these movies, I've done a few movie trailers. I've done quite a bit. But anyone my age who has been doing that professionally for a quarter of a century will have the same clients as I've had. It's yeah.
That's fantastic. Great opportunities for you. And in fact, not only have you done voiceover, but you've even been on a commercial. It was a promo for the Champions League on Sky Sports, and you were actually playing.
Mention that, Trenton. Don't do that to me. I look like Obelix. I literally look like Obelix in that thing. They wanted me to. Yeah, normally I've got a beard, and they wanted me to shave my beard and look like it's like Obelix. Yeah, but thank you, Trenton, for
you're welcome.
Nice one.
Well, you're very welcome. You look and you sound like the traditional Frenchman that I would imagine. And, maybe not for everyone, but it's wonderful because, you're playing a French chef, there's an English chef, and it's kind of going back and forth about your cooking styles. And it's really kind of referencing the soccer styles of the different countries, which, it's funny, like you're talking about escargot, snails, and the Englishman's like, so, but there are differences in people's tastes and their cooking, but there is also a difference, especially when it comes to football, how people have their opinions of certain teams from different countries. So it's really amazing to see that you got to do that as well. And, not just be a voice, but be a face as well. But, the whole reason we do this show is to give people a better understanding of who the voices are, so that they'll hopefully look up things and find out who the people are behind the voice. And, like talking about branding, I think a lot of people are probably going to type in Google searches, who did that voice, because they want to know. And hopefully the more this show is around, the more it'll just nothing but who did that voice will pop up in the searches.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But it's a term that, most people are going to ask or think of, in my thought process when I was coming up with the name, kind of like with you with the French voice. If people are like, I need a French voice. And if you're the one coming up number one, boom, it's a perfect marketing campaign, as well as, helping promote what you're doing, which, is something people have to think about. Like you said, if they are going into the industry or whatever they're doing, they have to think about the branding aspect of, is this name something people are going to remotely think of when they're searching for that particular topic, or is it going to take them to honeyfarmers.com and you're going to something that has nothing to do with anything other than Honey Nut Cheerios, So
yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I know some of the other commercials you've gotten to voice in France were for the La Rustique. It's a cheese, I believe. Is that how you say it?
Well, Le Rustique, this is a camembert. This is a real French camembert.
Yeah.
and that was actually for the UK market, and they wanted comedy French. They wanted like French farmer, le rustique de printemps, and so on.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun recording that, because they gave me creative license, and they said we want, you know, the real, imagine, you know, a farmer who just, you know, speak English because he has to, but he doesn't really, you know, he speaks English, but with a really thick French accent. And that was really enjoyable doing that.
That's awesome. Well, and I know you've actually, I believe you're the voice of ESPN in France. Is that correct?
Right. ESPN, I've been the voice of ESPN France from the time it launched. That was, if I remember well, that was in 2000.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
To 2012 or 2013, when they shut down the operations in France, because I don't know why. Maybe it was not successful enough. Maybe because for politics. Maybe you know, they decided to reallocate the budget something else. So ESPN in France shut down. But from the time it launched, yeah, well, you know, but from the time it launched to the time it shut down, I was the continuity voice of ESPN.
Wow.
And it was a blast being their voice for so long.
Oh, yeah.
I really enjoyed working with great producers there, and it was a pleasure, real pleasure.
Well, that's fantastic. You know, some of the companies I kind of went through were, you know, fast, but, you know, working for companies like Coca-Cola and McDonald's and Disney, I mean, those are all epic as well. I mean, there's a lot of other amazing ones we mentioned, but, you know, just so many iconic things that people for sure know on a daily basis, that you've been able to be a part of. I can't even talk today. But another wonderful commercial series that I believe you've been a part of for a long time is for the Dolce and Gabbana. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's quite epic. It's Dolce and Gabbana Light Blue, which was filmed. There were 5 now, I think, 5 commercials, all shot by the great Mario Testino, and I worked with him to. The first one was in 2007 or 2008, I can't remember. And we worked together to create the voice of Dolce and Gabbana Light Blue. And at the beginning, I was a bit surprised because he was producing me wanting a more medium voice. And normally I'm more picked for deeper voices. So he said, "Can you do it lighter?" And I thought I was going to reach the point where I can't go higher than that, you know. but you know, we found the tone that they wanted, the undertone of depth, but something a bit more medium, and quite current and fashion, a fashion tone really. And I think they wanted to convey the Dolce Vita, you know, the sweet life of Italy, and these commercials are great because the last 30 seconds is basically a love story in 30 seconds. Very simple because you can't really develop in 30 seconds, but it's beautifully shot in Sicilia. And after the first one, there is another one. That came in 2010, I think, with the same model, David Gandhi, and the female model changed, and then they did another one again, and then recently they did one for winter and one for a variation of the product, which is called Eau Intense, which is intense water, which is I understand a bit of a stronger
Scent.
Scent, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
And and it's been a saga really, and it's great because these commercials, because it's just literally the name of the brand, Dolce and Gabbana, light blue. and in few of them pour homme, which means for men. And so because it's so simple and there's no language limitation, the same Dolce & Gabbana light blue commercial with my voice aired worldwide, and it's something that even now it's difficult to get your head around that, because if it airs in the UK, well, I know England, I know Great Britain, or if it airs in America, I know that. If it airs in Japan, I know. You see what I mean? But
yeah, wherever it is, it's you. Yeah.
If it airs everywhere in countries you'd never heard of, in planes, basically everywhere in the world, and so you've been heard by maybe 2 billion people or something. It's just something that's a bit difficult to process, and even now, it's a buzz, and I believe, and I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the longest worldwide campaign ever.
Wow.
Which is now, well, it's about 10 years worldwide. So that's a buzz. I'm really, really ecstatic to continue to be chosen as the voice of Dolce & Gabbana. It's great when you have a relationship like that with a client who continues to trust you. And as they did with David Gandhi, he started. It was already model, but this is the commercial that made him worldwide famous, and he still does the commercial. He is kind of the face and the body, because the guy has got an amazing body. Bastard.
That's funny.
Of these commercials. And yeah, it really is a buzz. Yeah, absolutely. I'm very honored, to be honest, to continue to be the voice of Dolce & Gabbana.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's super fantastic, Pierre. And I know it has to be a big honor for you. You seem extremely thrilled about it. And I mean, especially if it is truly the #1 running campaign, like nationally, internationally, that's just, wow, that's huge, man.
Yeah.
So,
well, when I say for Dolce & Gabbana, I mean Dolce & Gabbana light blue.
Yeah.
Because for the other commercials, they've got other people to do it, obviously.
Yeah.
It's absolutely a buzz. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, Pierre, do you have social media or a website? How do people reach out to you if they have questions about voiceover, or maybe they're looking to hire you for a French voice?
Right. Well, I've got a website, which is thefrenchvoice.com. They can email me from the website, or email me at pierre@thefrenchvoice.com. I've got a professional page on Facebook, which is facebook.com/thefrenchvoice. I'm on Twitter, which is @thefrenchvoice.
Lovely.
So more or less everything @thefrenchvoice.
Fantastic.
Keep it consistent in your branding. That's what I say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I've got to add one thing, if I may.
Absolutely.
That was a high point in my career, beside all the commercials that I was lucky to have been trusted with to voice, which is Discovery. I was the continuity voice of Discovery France for 2 years, and then they started to have a change in their directions and not have continuity voice anymore. But I was their continuity, and I enjoyed it tremendously. I was not only voicing but writing all the links.
Oh wow!
And I was very, very privileged to be given to be given that opportunity, because excuse me, we worked with the producer on Air One on developing the tone of the channel and I was allowed to get away with things I didn't think I was going to be able to say. and just it's a guy talking to people. It's not the voice of discovery,
Yeah.
kind of. It was so I was a guy talking to the viewers, and sometimes impertinent about some of the shows that asked for it. They were quite second degree, and some of the shows were more spectacular. But and basically we developed a tone which was very close to people, impertinent at times, laughing with the viewers, and it was really a buzz. Writing for that, developing a tone for the channel together with Erwan, my producer, and so in the writing, and then and then in the voice, that was quite a buzz.
That's fantastic. I'm glad you shared that with us, because that's quite an honor as well, for sure.
Oh, indeed, yeah. I mean, being picked as and being trusted. Beyond what I thought would be possible from such a big channel,
Yeah.
It was, it's phenomenal. It's great to I enjoyed doing, for broadcast world, I enjoyed doing promos. It's great. It's one shot, it's 30 seconds or 10 seconds or what have you. And each time it's a different tone. But for continuity, well, you need to have continuity, don't you? And you develop the tone, and whatever you're going to voice, it needs to be consistent with the rest of what you're doing, even if the tone is more emotional or more humorous or whatever. It all needs to be coming from the same guy. So me, so in that case, me, and it's great to be able and to be given the opportunity to develop a tone over the years, and that gives an identity to the channel, and it's very rewarding, very, very rewarding.
Absolutely, Pierre. Well, a question I have for you is, what is the kind of advice that you would give to someone who might be looking at joining this crazy world of voiceover?
Very, very good question, Trenton. Hydrate, and hydrate again. That's the number one advice I'll give you. Hydrate. Apart from that, be grateful and show gratitude to people who are here to help you. In the industry, most people are very, very helpful. Most of my peers are helpful in the groups, in the forums. So don't take that for granted and show your gratitude. That will go a long, long way. Be grateful. Be grateful to your clients, because they picked you for what you have, which is your voice. You're unique. So be very grateful for that, and don't try and do what you don't do, what you can't do. That's a sure way to put a bullet in your foot. I'll never pretend to be English or to be American, because English or American guys or gals will do it much better than me. Yeah. Why should I pretend to do that? I speak in English with a French accent. I do that. But, so don't try to, I don't know, speak in English with a French voice. Yeah. Especially a French voice. Don't do that. Don't be my competition. I'm jesting, but you get my point.
Yeah.
And practice, and practice again. speak loud, over pronunciate, speak fast, speak slow, speak with different intentions. Imagine who you're talking to, what is it that you're talking about, who is the character, even if it's a brand is a character. It's what is that character, and what is your audience? Is it a baby on your lap? Is it two people who are sitting at 1 meter from you? Is it 100 people sitting behind you? Is it a crowd surrounding you? And I'm not talking about the techniques, about the projection and so on and so forth, although that needs to be practiced a lot. Excuse me. I'm talking about the intention. Practice your intention. That's intention is the key. There's nothing else that intention. When you speak to a baby, you've got an intention. When you speak to somebody you're angry at, there's an intention. When you speak to 100 people trying to save them from, I don't know, something, because something is about to fall, you have an intention. When you speak to your lover, to your wife, you have an intention. When you speak to a waiter, you have an intention. So intention in our daily life is, we don't even think about it. It's there. When you voice, it's something I tell all the people I coach. Intention is the key. If you have intention, the rest is technique, and technique anybody can have it by practice. By practice. Anyway, it's just that is nothing. It's just it's like anything. If you practice the technique, the projection, the pops, and the plosives, and so on and so forth. Learning to use your rib cage and your hips and your vocal cords and all that. That's just techniques. But intention, if you don't have it, you might be the best technician in the world. You won't connect with people. And in intention, in daily life, there's humanity, whether it's love, anger, whatever, there is humanity. And humanity is translated in your voice through things that are not always perfect. And it's more touching. That's something which is absolutely perfect, because that's a computer voice. Well, you know what I mean. It's not computer voice because it speaks like that, but you see what I mean. It's you've got to have something that there is a commercial. I recommend everybody to listen to, which is, I can't remember the name of the voice of an artist. Actually, a narrator. It was not a voiceover. It was picked to do that TV commercial. It's for an American whiskey. It's called The Wares. Okay. And it's Tom. Well, search it on YouTube. The Wares TV commercial, Tom, and then you'll find it. It's an amazing. I'll send you the link if you want to put it in your article. It's amazing. I'd love to have his voice and I mean his delivery is just, and it's the script is actually a poem. I'll send you the link.
Okay, absolutely.
It's really, really beautiful. Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah. Well, intention.
Absolutely.
Intention.
Well, I think your advice was wonderful. It was really solid, and it's kind of a unique perspective that I haven't really heard before. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us, Pierre.
Hydrate.
I have one final question, and we will wrap this interview up. The question is, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind, Pierre?
Well, it's that's a good question. That's a complex question as well. I assume you mean professionally.
Anything. It could be professionally, or it could be in your life, or it could be both. Either or.
Well, in my life, I've got two boys. They're twins. They're 5.5, and that's above everything else. Being a good dad, teaching them how to be good human beings, that is really above everything else. If I manage that, then I can die happy.
Absolutely, yeah.
But professionally, I think that if we work with ethics, if we serve, I mean, we're a profession of service.
Yeah.
We're there to serve clients. If we do a good job, they will sell their products, and we will help people keep their jobs, for instance. Or in the case of I mentioned because a lot of people diss jobs that are actually the bread and butter in our industry, industrial videos. Excuse me. So if you manage to do a good voiceover for a safety video for an industrial plant, and people listen and they don't fall asleep because you did a good job, one day having done that job might help someone save a life because they won't do something silly on the plant.
Wow.
You see?
I never thought of it like that. That's amazing.
But that's a responsibility we have.
Yeah.
When we do a TV commercial for a perfume, a car, or whatever, if we do a good job, hopefully we will participate toward the client selling their products. And if they sell their products, then we will help people hopefully keep their jobs.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got, because we are at the end of the process. They spend a lot of money, for instance, for a TV commercial. They spend a lot of money on a TV commercial and on the M&Es and and on the grading and all that. And we come at the end, and it's we're the very end of the process. So if we do a great job, then everything will bond together, and people will want to watch that commercial, hopefully, or they will like it. If they like it, well, hopefully they will buy the product. So of course it's commercial. Of course we help to sell products. The idea that we force products onto people is quite ignorant, because it doesn't work like that. Marketing has not worked like that for I don't know, about 30 years. Now products are created following market research and listening to what people want. We don't say, oh well, we'll sell them any color as long as it's black, like the famous line for the Ford. It doesn't work like that anymore. So I think it's really important if we help gel a commercial together, bond together, so the result is important. And one technical thing, if you're asked to work on the TV commercial, sometimes the client say, "Oh, can you just do the voice?" And insist, if you can, to have the M&Es first, so that your voice, music and effects, sorry, for the lingual, so that your voice comes in harmony with it as another instrument in the music and effects, and not just as a voice which is led on a bed of sound, music and effects in that case, so that you can work with the music, you can work with the rhythm of it and all that. So insist to have the M&Es. If you can't have the pictures, at least ask to have the M&Es. There you go.
Fantastic. Well, I think it's a great legacy that you want to leave behind, and it's definitely a perspective I never had on even like the industrial videos and stuff. Like, if you're doing it right, if people aren't going, "Wow, this is the most boring video I've ever watched," then you could really be saving a life or making an impact on the world that people just aren't thinking about, and that's what I love about this show. You're fine. That's what I love about this show is that I learned so much myself. And I know that my listeners are learning too. And, I always wanted to be able to educate, inspire, and motivate people, to learn more, to grow, to, possibly become a voiceover talent themselves and realize how important their job is, even when it's the quote unquote unsexy jobs for industrial videos or whatever it may be, that, yes, I'm not a cartoon character in this voiceover, but how am I impacting the world in what I'm doing today? And how can I be the most effective at what I'm doing?
Yeah, remember one thing. I'm not speaking to you because I know you do know that, but to all the newbies and people who want to learn our trade and all that, you are in a profession of service. You're serving, so there's no room for ego, at all. Just forget that. And also remember one thing is that you will be rejected. You might know it or not, because most of the time we don't even know it, but you will be rejected 95% of the time. And that's just how the cookie crumbles. That's part and parcel. That's part and parcel of our industry. We are rejected 95% of the time. So, if you have an ego, it's going to be bruised a lot.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more with you, Pierre. Well, Pierre, it has been an absolute honor and pleasure having you on the show today. Would you please give us a closeout as we wrap up today's episode?
Well, Trenton, it's been a joy and a privilege to speak with you today, to share views over the industry, and to now be part of the privileged ones who are on your show.
Well, thank you very much, Pierre. I really appreciate that.
That's my pleasure, truly.
Well, thank you so very much for joining us today all the way from France, and we will see you guys next time on Who Did That Voice?
Bye-bye, everybody.
Well, everyone, I sure hope you enjoyed today's episode with Pierre Maubouché, the voice of Dolce Gabbana, Light Blue, and so much more. And if you did, please find me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram by searching Who Did That Voice. I would love to hear from you. A question you might ask yourself is, where can I listen to Who Did That Voice? That's an excellent question. You can hear us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and our website at www.whodidthatvoice.co. Click the Episodes tab and listen away. Well, everyone, that's all the time we have for this episode. Join us next time for our tribute episode to Mel Blanc, the man of 1,000 voices. You won't want to miss this episode. Hey, do you ask yourself who did that voice? Well, if you do, go to our website, www.whodidthatvoice.co, and click on the Episodes tab. Choose an actor, pick their name, and see pictures from the different characters they've voiced in their career.
Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time for more discoveries on Who Did That Voice.